Stark's Reality says blue on blue is such a bad idea as it doesn't give you anything to focus on. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I couldn't put it into words. I just know that looking at it was like, it just, I don't know. June 4th Roadmap Roundup. So obviously this is a little bit dated. We're a couple weeks out from this, but I just wanted to catch up on these things. Hello everyone. Every 2 weeks we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision making that led to any changes. This is part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who helped make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. Just a reminder, the 1.0 column showcases features and content planned for inclusion in or before Star Citizen 1.0. This means you may not have to wait for the 1.0 release to experience them. As features content in the 1.0 column become ready, they will migrate left into a point patch column for release. So I think that the reason they are pointing this in is because I wouldn't be surprised if in the not too distant future, a thing from the 1.0 column makes its way into the release view column. Yeah, Hot Take Roadmap Roundup feels like another avenue to publish patch notes. Yeah, it's really not insightful right now because it's really just regurgitating things that we already know from the patch notes if you follow them at all. But I do always cover it just to make sure and just to make sure there isn't anything I'm missing because it pays to be thorough. So release view 4.2.0 irradiated Apex Valakar. Adding the irradiated Apex Valakar that players can find near the research facility while doing the Stormbreaker sandbox activity. This was previously listed under the new creatures card. This card has been set to committed. Irradiated adult and irradiated juvenile, same thing, but for those species. Irradiated Copion. What's interesting to me about this is adding in the radiation part. So if they can add radiation, what other modifiers, abilities, pardon me, can they give to base creatures to differentiate them from their the base version? If they can spit if their new attack is radiated and it spawns different loot. Poison, fire, acid, maybe cold, like a oh gosh, what's the like like a cryo type attack. The possibilities are really endless. So who knows what kind of crazy shit we're gonna see. New hairstyles in 4.2 and 4 new additional hairstyles. Obviously radiation, dangerous radiation zones, the irradiated attack from the Valakar, receiving radiation damage requires you to use specialized gear and notate it. It'll be interesting when we're able to scan and see that stuff. And I hope to see when we get more medical gameplay, I hope that healing radiation damage is has some differentiation from other types of damage. The ASD research facility, strategically located on Pyro 1. Associated science and development facilities that provide essential infrastructure and sandbox gameplay opportunities for planetary operations. ASD data center is strategically placed on Pyro 4. ASD data centers are providing key infrastructure and sandbox gameplay opportunities for planetary operations. Stormbreaker sandbox activity, adding the Stormbreaker sandbox activity, utilizing new gameplay mechanics to tell new stories in the verse. So new stories. So here's the thing. This is a sandbox activity, and the way they've talked about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it's meant to be evergreen. If the regen crisis isn't meant to be, eventually it's going to have to come to a head and be resolved in some way, shape, or form. So what's going to happen to these locations and the content there? Will they modify it and make it into something else? what's going to be the point of these locations if you're not going there as part of the regen crisis. I don't know. Argo Atlas Icti, adding the Atlas Icti, the Atlas Geo Icti, versatile new combat suits developed for upcoming challenges, ready to prove their value in an upcoming new sandbox activity. They both are equipped with dual weapons, and the Geo Icti version keeps its backpack for a jumping ability with adjusted gear slots to fit FPS weapons and gadgets. Set to committed. I love how they made this only earnable in-game, because not only does it get people playing the game, but it also drives sales of the Atlas and the Geo. Combat players didn't buy the Atlas and the Geo because they don't need a cargo loader. They didn't need a mining mech. But if they want the combat version, now they will buy that in order to farm the stuff that they need in order to convert them into combat mechs. So it even though it's a win for PR for CIG by making it only earnable in game, but because one of the things that goes into earning it is something you can buy, it drives sales from people who wouldn't have bought it already. There you go. Everybody wins. The perfect solution. No notes. Wicklow special ships. Adding multiple new ships and vehicles to the ever-expanding Wicklow's Emporium Mirai Guardian QI, Anvil Mark II Super Hornet, Miss Fortune, Apoa Nox, Mirai Guardian, RSI Ursa Medevac. These ships and vehicles can be unlocked by bringing the NPC Wicklow a number of favors in exchange for rewards. Volt Laser Shotgun Prism, adding a cutting-edge energy shotgun that ramps up its pellet spread with heat, delivering brutal close-range bursts powered by Volt. Sterling Exploration Suit. Introducing the Sterling Exploration Suit, a heavy utility armor built to withstand extreme radiation, enabling safe traversal through the most hazardous zones. Innerhype says, I feel like places like those get shut down or maybe transformed to continue the crazy mad scientist stuff. Yeah, I mean, mad scientists, okay, well, this is different. The regen crisis is not ongoing, and there's new mad scientist stuff going on. Or it gets converted into not mad scientist stuff, or it becomes a derelict location, with squatters. I don't know. Northern Trooper says, I feel like they missed the mark with the Guardian MX and QI. Why is that? Do tell. I have no skin in the game. I'm not a Mirai person, and I'm certainly not a fighter or someone who's interested in quantum interdiction. QI should have dampener and snare. Oh, because of the size? Yeah. Yeah, I think that given its size, especially in relation to the Mantis, and the MX is bloated. Oh, because it has all that interior space? I don't know. I kind of like a heavy fighter with an interior. I think it's kind of cool. Because it's a good solo mission runner. You can do space combat with it. You can go run FPS missions. You can live out of it. I kind of thought it did when I first seen it. I don't know. I haven't even hardly looked at it because it's just not something I'm interested in at all. So you guys tell me. It not having both, yeah, I do kind of feel like it's based off its size, and the amount of internal volume it has and everything. It's not like the the RSI X-Wing, which doesn't have a lot of internal volume. It makes sense that that's just a interdiction versus both. Scorpius, there you go. Oh, I love that, but I can fit my Guardian the Polaris, but the MX doesn't fit in any hangar except the 890, I believe. It's not a hangar-based ship, though. That's the thing. If it's meant to fit in a hangar, it's because it's meant to be carrier or station-based. If it's bigger like that, it doesn't really need to be transported in a hangar because it has enough quantum fuel and range, and livability. It's, I don't know. Dynamic rain. Hell yeah. This is straight up vibes. Oh my gosh. Seeing the rain in all these different locations, which is backwards for the regular Guardian. I don't know. I hadn't given it much thought. I think they might have to do some tuning, but for a ship that size, if you're meant to be able to, there's a difference between carrier-based and station-based. And I don't think every large ship or heavy fighter, it needs to be long range either, especially given that we are very quickly moving to the you not moving between planetary systems on a regular basis game. And so you really don't need the range, and a lot of places you're not going to be needing, move it. The use of a carrier is more to be able to move power around and deploy it quickly, not to necessarily to transition it from one planetary system to another. If that makes sense, to provide near space support. And I think that's another thing that people get wrong, is they think of it as only I need this to carry my ships from one far-flung place to another, and it's not just that. It's to provide near space support and a place to come back to, in an area. If you think of carrier-borne fighters right now, the purpose of the carrier isn't just to bring them from San Diego to the Persian Gulf. It's to support them once they're in the Persian Gulf and they're going on flights within their range, and come back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We just don't have the feature sets to do all that necessarily yet. You can kind of rearm missiles, but not ammo. You can, do some minor repairs. You can't replace components, all the components yet. Yeah, there's a way to go. You can't refuel, but that's the intent. But sometimes it's going to be, okay, well, you're going to have to go back to a space station or a landing zone, and you're not going to be able to use a carrier-based carrier because the ship's too big for that, and that's not its role. Anyway, dynamic rain as the first step toward Genesis dynamic weather. What more dynamic? What's next? What's the next step? That's what I want to know. Aegis Idris P, adding the Idris Peacekeeper. A ship that secured our past and continues to define our future. This steadfast, tactical, civilian class incarnation of the UEN Darling is available to fly for the first time. It's great. It's definitely dated looking and has a lot of stuff to be added, but it's nice to finally have it in my hands. But it definitely is going to need a lot of updates as they continue to develop it. Grey Cat MTC, adding the MTC vehicle. Grey Cat's comprehensive suit and gun storage, defensive weaponry, and customary off-road ability. Great little adjunct vehicle. Great little mission support vehicle. Yeah, Genesis. But what's the next part of Genesis? Or the next part of Genesis dynamic weather. Mirai Guardian MX, adding the Mirai Guardian MX, keeping the cutting-edge design of its predecessor. The MX refines destruction to a powerful art. Enhanced weaponry and shields mean Mirai once again has put you ahead of every other single pilot flying. MISC Starlancer TAC, adding the Starlancer TAC ship designed for tactical assault and rescue. Rescue? Just because it has med beds? I think that's kind of a stretch, but okay. Anvil Asgard, introducing Anvil's new savior of the battlefield, the Asgard, a heavily armored vehicle dropship equipped for boundless resilience in the hottest combat zones. All right, that is the June 4th Roadmap Roundup. Let's get through the June 18th Roadmap Roundup from last week. Not going to read the preamble because we just read that on the previous one. Notable changes for June 18th, Release View 4.2. All 4.2 cards have been set to committed, so the Prowler Utility set to committed. 4.2.1, Space Combat Mission Defend, Space Combat Mission Support Ship. adding new missions focused around escorting ships that are under immediate threat. This has been updated to reflect the type of mission that will come in Alpha 4.2.1. So just changing the description. New global event. Adding a global cross-shard event that builds on collaboration and competition, set to tentative. Volt Laser Pistol Pulse, introducing a powerful new pistol from Volt's specialized arsenal. A high-capacity, fully automatic sidearm that ramps up its rate of fire as it heats up. I think the modifiers for the Volt weapons are pretty damn cool. I hope we see more stuff in terms of modifiers for weapons as part of their design in the future. It'll be interesting to see how creative they can get. Pardon me. New medium utility armor. The new medium utility armor has been temporarily removed. Boo. While we shift it to the Alpha 4.3 column. I'm assuming that's going to be the not July but August patch. It will reappear once the 4.3 column is populated. I'm interested to see what the medium utility armor it looks like and how it fits into the term utility. All right, we're gonna, now that we've wrapped up and caught up with the roadmap roundups in June, we're gonna go ahead and switch screens real quick. That way I have a little timestamp. Before we move on to the spectrum pulls for the evening, why dropships?